The Raiders received their schedule for 2024 on Wednesday. So what do we like? What do we dislike? And what left us just confused? That plus a whole lot more comes up on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for May 16th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. As always, if you're giving us a look on YouTube, we definitely appreciate that. Show continues to grow in a major way. That's because of you and my man, Ari. Raider Nation, with the support of you, we definitely appreciate that. That's what's really blown up the show, but Ari gets to show up each and every day, making sure we're looking good and sounding good on YouTube, so we definitely appreciate him. Check him out on Twitter, at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well, at your boy Q254. And, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line if you want to be a part of the show, 707-654-4693. A lot of calls and texts coming up in segment number 3, multiple different subjects, talking about the schedule release, talking about the quarterback situation, talking about free agents, lots of good stuff to get to in segment number 3, so we'll do as much as that as possible, your calls and texts. Segment number 2, we'll take a look at the Raiders schedule for 2024, and we'll kind of dissect it. We'll tear it apart. We'll look at it. We'll flip it upside down. We'll sit here and look at, what I like about it, what I dislike about it. Where's the primetime games? Where's the easy part? Where's the tough part? What do I think the overall record could be? The little window that I think they'll have. We'll do all that. We'll break everything down when it comes to the Raiders schedule 2024. We'll do that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. So the Raiders schedule was released at 5 o'clock Pacific time on Wednesday. There was a lot of leaks that were going around all day long. Really started on Tuesday night, late night. There was a lot of leaks that started to come out. And then Wednesday all day until the actual schedules were released, there was tons of leaks. So we kind of knew, I felt like I knew half the Raiders schedule before it ever was officially released. But here it is real quick. We'll go over it and again, we'll break it on down in segment number 2. But here's the schedule, quick, fast, and in a hurry. For the preseason, the Raiders are at Minnesota. They host the Dallas Cowboys, and they host the 49ers. None of those games have times. None of those games have dates. So they're all TBD, to be determined. At Minnesota, Dallas is at home, and San Francisco is at home. Those are the 3 preseason games for the Silver and Black. And normally the preseason games are like, yeah, whatever. But since the Raiders do have this quarterback competition between Aiden OConnell and Gardner Minshew, I do believe those games will actually be interesting. Something to pay attention to will be what the quarterback play looks like. As far as the regular season goes, which is all that really matters, right? The Raiders start out the season on the road for another season in a row. They're in LA, which is, of course, it's a Raiders home game away from home, but they're taking on the Chargers, so a divisional game Sunday, September 8th at the Chargers. Sunday, September 15th, they stay on the road and take on the Baltimore Ravens. So back-to-back road games. They return home Sunday, September 22nd. That is their first home game of the season, taking on the Carolina Panthers. Sunday, September 29th, Cleveland Browns. They're in town as well. So 2 games on the road, 2 games at home. Then they return on the road Sunday, October 6th, at the Denver Broncos, only to return home Sunday, October 3rd, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Back on the road to L.A. So, again, home away from home, taking on the Rams this time. That'll be October 20th. October 27th, back at the crib, hosting the Kansas City Chiefs before they take on the road Sunday, November 3rd, my birthday, by the way, on the road at Cincinnati. Then they have a bye week. So they have, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games under their belt. Then they get the bye week. Not bad. We'll talk about that more in segment number 2. Then they come out of the bye week. They're on the road at Miami. They host the Broncos November 24th. They're on the road at Kansas City Friday, November 29th. Black Friday. I got plenty to say about that. The league, for some reason, I don't know what it is, the league can't figure it out. With a league that is as smart as they are, that is so good at marketing, that is so good at generating money, cannot figure out that the team that actually has and talks about the silver and black all the time, has black in their uniforms, was one of the originals to have black in their uniforms, plays in a black stadium, right, are referred to as a silver and black all the time, are not hosting a Black Friday game. I don't understand it. They didn't even play in the Black Friday game last season. It was the Jets in Miami. That was a fail. And this year, the Raiders go to Kansas City on Black Friday. Again, I won't get it. I don't understand it. This league is so smart, and they generate so much money, they can't get that right. But that's That's me. We'll talk about that later. They stay on the road. Sunday, December 8th, they're in Tampa Bay taking on the Buccaneers. They return home Monday, December 16th, hosting the Falcons. They stay at home Sunday, December 22nd with the Jacksonville Jaguars at the house. And then Sunday, December 29th, they go on the road to the Big Easy, taking on the New Orleans Saints, Derek Carr and company, Sunday, December 29th, and TBD for the Week 18 game, the Chargers at home. So they start the season with L.A., and they end the season with L.A. So, of course, primetime games of Week 18 are subject to change. Specific dates, start times, and networks for Week 18 matchups will be determined and announced following the conclusion of Week 17. So that's the Raiders' schedule in a nutshell. I know I went through it really quickly. Don't worry. We'll break it on down. We'll slow it on down. We'll do that coming up in segment number 2. Also, a little bit of a nugget that I wanted to pass along. You probably saw this on Wednesday at some point. Netflix is now in bed with the NFL. They're getting the Christmas games. And I saw the tweet early on Wednesday morning. Netflix is finalizing a deal to acquire exclusive rights to stream both NFL games on Christmas Day this upcoming season. Netflix is expected to purchase the package for less than $150 million per game. Not much less than $150 million per game. And then they ended up becoming official a little bit later Wednesday afternoon. So the Christmas games, Ravens at the Texans, Chiefs at the Steelers, both Wednesday, December 25th, 2024, both games on Netflix. And yeah, there you go. Another streaming service getting in bed with the NFL. And they made just about $300 million, almost $300 million based off those two games. So if you don't have your Netflix account up, go ahead and get it, right? You know, if you're sharing your account, they're charging, an extra $8 for everyone outside the house or putting it on your account. So you might as well go ahead and get your Netflix up because streaming is where everything is going. Amazon is streaming Thursday night football games. You know, Peacock did it last year. Netflix is doing the Christmas games. If you're on, if you're not DirecTV, but if you've got Sunday Ticket, that's now on YouTube TV, right? I'm sure Apple's going to get involved. Apple TV will get involved sooner rather than later. Like everything will be streamed at some point, but Netflix is the latest one with 2 games on Christmas Day, I should say. Ravens at Texans and Chiefs at Steelers. So that's what I got for you for just news and notes, a few little nuggets I wanted to pass along in segment number 1 before we deep dive into the Raiders schedule, like break down the schedule, talk about the strength of the schedule, look at the strength, like the toughest part, the toughest stretch, look at the good stretch, look at the primetime games, just every part of the schedule we'll break down, and I'll give you a window of the win-loss record that I believe the Raiders can have in 2024. We'll do that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we do that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Gametime. And now that you know the schedule, you know when they're coming up. You already knew the opponents were going to be, but now that you know exactly when these games are going to be played, now you can start planning your trips. Now you can start buying your tickets for these games. You want to be in Baltimore. You want to be in New Orleans. You want to be in Kansas City for Black Friday. Whatever the case may be, wherever you want to go on the road to these games, Gametime can help you get there. They do have last-minute deals, so if you don't want to start planning right now and you might want to wait till the last minute, sure, you can. Maybe you want to go to New Orleans and you want to see Derek Carr. Maybe you want to wait a while to see if Derek Carr is there in Week 17 and he'll be actually playing that last game before 2025. Maybe you want to do that so you can get those priority last-minute deals. They've got flash deals, zone deals. They got seat views, so you can actually get a perfect view of your seat before you actually buy your tickets, so you know what you're getting when you buy them. They got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Gametime ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. So right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Remember that promo code's all one word, LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to start to break down the Raiders schedule for 2024. We talked about it quite a bit on Wednesday's show. We knew the opponents. We just didn't know what order the games are going to come in. So now it's our time to break it all the way down. Now, remember, the Raiders' opponents and the Raiders' schedule is the 9th toughest schedule in the National Football League. They got a 5-12 win percentage, the opponents that they're playing. They were 9th in the league. The Chiefs are behind them in the AFC West at 502. That's good for 19th. The Broncos are behind them at 495, which is good for 20th. And the Chargers are dead last in the AFC West at a 478 win percentage, strength of schedule, 28th. For them. So the Raiders have the toughest schedule in the division, but, you know, that's always subject to change based off how good teams are or not. So just looking at the schedule, if you remember on Wednesday's show, if you listen, I had some things that I look at, some criteria that I look at when I look at the schedule, kind of break it on down. So we'll go ahead and go through that really quickly. Season opener. Is it home? Is it away? Is it prime time or not? Well, it's not prime time. And it is away, but it's the Chargers on the road. So if you're going to start the season on the road, I don't mind you starting at SoFi Stadium. We know the Raider Nation will definitely be in the building. The Raiders' overall record there at SoFi is not great. 1-4 since they've been playing there, so that's not fantastic, but it's not a hell of a road trip. It's not like you're going across the country, right? You're going there to L.A., and, of course, a lot of Raider Nation is going to be representing. You get Jim Harbaugh week 1. Of course, he's the belle of the ball. Everyone's talking about him. Antonio Pierce and company have an opportunity to make a statement week 1. So I don't really have a problem with that, looking at that one and saying, okay, it's an on the road game, but it's in LA and it's against the Chargers. So I think that will be okay. Then I always look at the Chiefs games. When are the Raiders playing the Chiefs, and are the Chiefs coming off a bye or not? Well, the Chiefs and the Raiders play week 8 and they play week 13. And no, it's not coming off a Chiefs bye, because the Chiefs have the bye following their week 5 game versus Saints, and their next game is the 49ers. So it goes, the Chiefs play the Saints, then they have a bye, then they play the 49ers. So the Raiders avoid that problem. And not that anybody's scared of the Chiefs, I just know Andy Reid's track record coming off the bye. And why set yourself up for that, right? I don't really want anything to do with that. More times than not, the Raiders end up getting the Chiefs coming off the bye, and I just can't stand that. So speaking of byes, when do the Raiders get the bye? Well, they get it week 10 following the Bengals game and before the Dolphins game. That's fine. You get 9 games under your belt, then you take a break, get to lick your wounds a little bit, and get ready to go to South Beach to take on the Dolphins, a team that I'm sure everyone in that building that was there last year feels like they let that game slip away. So I think that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. Last year, it was week 13. That took a little bit longer. You don't want to have it too late in the season, and you don't want to have it too early. Even the Chiefs, if you look at them, they got, week 5. They play 5 games, then they have a bye. And so that's, it's a little bit early, even though they have an extended break following the first game of the season going into the second game, because they play on that Thursday, September 5th. Then they have all that time off. It's almost like a mini bye they have off. So it might not be quite the same, not quite as bad for them, but still they get a bye following week 5, where the Raiders get one following the Bengals game. So in week 10, following that week 9 game versus Cincinnati. Cold weather games. When do they have the cold weather games? Well, they have the cold weather game, could be against the Baltimore Ravens, but it's not, because they play Baltimore week 2. So what's the next one up? Well, that week 9 game against the Bengals. So, okay, that's November. It probably won't be too bad. It's early November. I think that's fine. Week 11, week 12, those could be potentially, cold weather games as well. But I don't really think so, right? I think that they did pretty well. I mean, they've got the Bengals. That's November 3rd. That could potentially be a cold one. And then a little bit later on, you got Denver, Sunday, November 24th. And then, that one, I'm sorry, that one's at home. I'm tripping. November 24th is at home, so that's not going to be cold. But then you got Kansas City on Black Friday, so that could be cold. So really, it's only 2, right? I was giving them too many. I was saying 3. There was really only 2. So I think the Raiders did pretty well with the cold weather games. Now, I did mention, and this is going to lead right into the prime time games, the Black Friday game is one that bothers me. It really does. The Raiders have 2 primetime games. I know a lot of people are looking at it as only 1 primetime game, because they have a Monday Night Football game, week 15 versus the Falcons. That's at Allegiant Stadium. The other game that's being considered a primetime game is the Black Friday game, even though it's a noon kickoff, and everyone's like, well, it can't be primetime if it's noon. Yes, but it's a standalone game. There are no other teams that are playing that day, but whatever you want to call it, it's what you want to call it. The league is calling it and treating it as a primetime game because it's a standalone game. I don't want to, get into an argument over words. It doesn't really matter. But 2, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going to rock with what I'm talking about. I still don't like the Black Friday game being on the road. I'll go to my grave and say that there's no reason why the Raiders aren't hosting that game. It just doesn't make any sense. I've said it and spent plenty of times ranting and raving about it on the podcast, plenty of time ranting and raving about it on the radio, ranting and raving about it sitting at a bar talking to my buddies. Like, it just, anyone who will listen, and even those that won't, I'm like, what in the world is going on? How does a team that is the silver and black playing a black stadium, whenever you think of, real men wear black, real women wear black, you're thinking of a Raider fan, right? Jerseys are black. They haven't changed up their uniforms, where half the league has put all of a sudden black in their uniform because they want to be that team. They want to have that element in their uniforms. I mean, the Raiders do what they are. They're the men in black, right? I mean, how many times, again, I don't have to tell you the history. It makes me mad thinking about it right now. So the Raiders are playing in that game this year. Great. They didn't play last year. It was the Jets and Dolphins. That was a terrible game, especially with no Aaron Rodgers. But, now they're on the road taking on the Chiefs. So, and someone pointed this out on my radio show on Wednesday. They said, okay, so Black Friday game is going to be played in a red stadium, and the Raiders will be wearing white uniforms. Make that make sense. It doesn't. But the primetime games, only 2. I was actually surprised that the Raiders had as many primetime games as they did a year ago. And then I'm surprised that they have as little as they do this year. So that was one that kind of made me scratch my head. What's the tough stretch of the schedule? I don't think it's too bad. I mean, when you look at the stretch, I look at weeks 8, weeks 9, and week 11, right? The Chiefs, the Bengals, but then they have a bye in between those, and then the Dolphins. That's the stretch I look at. That's like, okay, that's tough, right? Obviously, those are all playoff teams right there. Chiefs, Bengals, but they have a bye, and then the Dolphins. So if you're going to go into a tough stretch, why not have a bye right in between, a couple of the tough games? So that's really kind of the stretch I look at. And then the easier stretch, the end of the season, weeks 15 through 18, 3 out of the 4 games are at home. There's no playoff team from 2023. You got the Falcons, Jaguars, Saints, and Chargers. Those are the 4 teams that I look at. I was like, okay, cool. So depending on what the Raiders are doing, if they're hovering around, hanging around as far as the, their overall record, they could really make up some big time ground, or maybe even sneak into the playoffs if they can go on a run, maybe close out the season 4-0 or 3-1, right? I mean, again, obviously there's a lot of football that has to be played before it gets to that part of the schedule, and they've got to be able to, keep themselves within striking range, but it looks like it's something that's very doable. So what happens when I looked at the win-loss overall record? Look, I looked into the games going into the bye, and I said, you know what, they could be, everything goes right, they could easily be 5-4 going into the bye, right? And I look at the final, 8 games and say, okay, say they're 4-4 after that. So I look at anywhere from 9-8 overall record, which is not a playoff team, to 10-7. I think that's the legit window. I feel like that's a fair window. That's not me getting too hyped, too excited, too much belief in this team. But I think with the strength of the defense, I think with, quarterbacks that can win games, not elite quarterbacks, but guys that can win, I think that they can hover around anywhere from 9 to 10 wins. And 10 wins might sneak you into the playoffs, right? I'm not saying it's going to. And obviously there's a lot of work to be done. A lot will be determined by the rest of the league, what they're doing. But I honestly look at the schedule. I've had a couple people hit me up by way of Twitter and say, I only see 5 wins on the schedule. I only see 6. Okay, right? I mean, I'm looking at, again, I don't think this. Let's put it like this. I don't think they'll be under 500 this year, right? They were 8-9 in 2023. I think they will be better in 2024. So that, again, leads me to go 9-8, potentially 10-7. Now, these are always predictions that are guaranteed to be wrong, right? I can go up and down the schedule and say, okay, well, this could be a win. Like the Chargers, I think that's a win. The Ravens, I think that's probably a loss early in the season at Baltimore. Carolina, I think that's a win. Cleveland, I honestly think that can go either way, right? I almost want to lean towards the Raiders, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. So I'll give the Raiders a loss there. So they're 2-2 after the first 4 games. At Denver, I'm giving them a win. Pittsburgh, hosting Pittsburgh, I think that's a win. That should have been a win last year. It wasn't. I think the Raiders are better this year than they were. I know Pittsburgh's going to be better as well, but I don't think Russell Wilson or Justin Fields is going to blow the Raiders out the park. So I think that could be a couple wins. So you're 2-2. Say you're 4-2 at Rams. Just say they lose that one. It's 4-3. Chiefs, say they lose that one. It's 4-4, even though they're at home. And then Cincinnati. So probably one of those two, either the Chiefs or the Bengals, they win that. That's how I get to 5-4 by the bye. Coming out, Miami, okay, that's could be a win. Let's just give them a loss. 5-5 Broncos, I think that's a win. 6-5 KC, that's a tough one. I do think that they could split this year. So, whatever. 6-6 Tampa Bay. I don't know. That's one I could see going either way easily. But let's go ahead and give that one to the Raiders. Then the Falcons, Jaguars, Saints, and Chargers. If they win 3 of those, that's 10 wins. Right? So, I mean, again, these are guaranteed to be wrong predictions. I have no problem saying that, right? But just the way I look at the schedule, the way it's balanced out, I think that the Raiders have a fighting chance to go anywhere from 9-8 to 10-7. So I'm not trying to make some big old window and, sound like some whatever, they can go from 8-9 to 13-4. Like, I mean, that's, not realistic. So 9-8, 10-7, I feel comfortable with. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of feedback on the Locked On Raiders podcast voicemail line about what you believe the overall record could potentially be, what your window is. I think windows are fair because, the teams change a little bit. They go up and down, the ebbs and flows. I think it's fair to have a window. So again, 9-8 to 10-7 is my window. What says you? 707-654-4693. We'll get to your calls and texts coming up. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA, the NHL, a lot of action going on in both sports as they're in the playoffs. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, all new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's that simple. You have a winning $5 bet, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets just like that. You can bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and a whole lot more. And man, it's a lot of fun to follow along with the NBA or the NHL and have a little something on it, a little player prop bet. Just makes it a lot more fun. And if your team wins or if you don't have a dog in the fight, maybe it makes you a little bit more interested in the game as well. All you got to do is head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make sure you use that promo code LOCKEDON and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start off with Apple Valley Raider. He's calling to talk about the Black Friday game, Raiders versus Chiefs.
Yo, what's going on? This Apple Valley Raider. Yo, all I saw was one thing. The Raiders and Chiefs on Black Friday. On Black Friday, we talked about that. I think you got pulled, Q. You did something to say Raiders should be playing Black Friday. Well, it's official, like you say, like a referee's whistle. Anyway, Q, I know you probably got about 50 messages talking about Black Friday Raiders. And I know you're going to talk about it on the show. Anyway, I'll be listening tomorrow, hear you talk about it. I'll let you later, Q. Have a good one.
Apple Valley, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, man, I think you're giving me too much credit, right? The game is still on the road. I don't get it, right? I've talked about it in multiple segments now. I don't get it. I'll never understand it. I actually had my guy, Ari Mayrod from the 33rdteam.com. He was actually on my radio show on Wednesday, and he told me, Q, I'm going to be talking to the NFL schedule, the makers on Thursday. So I'll ask him the reason for the Black Friday game not being at Allegiant Stadium, because even he agreed, and maybe it was just because he was on my radio show, he agreed that it made sense that the Raiders, who play in an all-black stadium, have the Black Friday game. It makes sense. And look, if you're going to put the Jets in in the Black Friday game because they're in Times Square, right? They're there in New York, which actually is New Jersey, but that's another conversation. If they're going to be there and they're talking about shopping, you tell me you can't do shopping in Vegas? Nobody shops in Vegas? That's a new story to me. That's a new storyline. Nobody shops in Vegas? Huh. I dare you to go on the strip and say that, right? They're always shopping in Vegas. You can't do nothing but shop in Vegas. So if that's what they're talking about, well, guess what? You can have that Black Friday game at Allegiant Stadium. There's plenty of time and opportunity, space and opportunity to go shopping. But again, that's just me. Now, I did have one of my guys, Adam Hill from the RJ, and also my radio station, sister station, ESPN Las Vegas, say, well, F1 is that weekend as well. They're going to be in town. So do you want the Raiders in town with F1? So that could be a potential reason why they didn't do it. But, hey, look, man, I still think that the Black Friday game should be played at Allegiant Stadium. It just makes sense to me. The Lions have Thanksgiving. The Cowboys have Thanksgiving. The Raiders should have Black Friday. Just my 2 cents. Clearly, I'm just a guy with 2 cents, and my 2 cents can't buy nothing. So thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Tadrees in New Jersey. It says, Q, Tadrees from New Jersey, quick text. Brock Bowers, $18 million guaranteed, $10 million signing bonus, sign on the dotted line, direct deposit, please. You can't get that on Monopoly Go. LOL. We're going to have a special season coming. Raider Nation might want to get the YouTube NFL package. Just win, baby. That's Tadrees from New Jersey. Thanks so much. And yeah, it's pretty amazing, right? Brock Bowers, number 13 overall pick, signs a 4-year deal, $18 million fully guaranteed. Of course, they got the 5th-year option, but $10 million signing bonus. Like, you sign your name on dotted line. I wouldn't know what to do with myself, right? That's why I'm in the position I'm in, right? They knew to make me broke, because if they gave me $10 million when I signed my name on dotted line, they might not see me again, right? Who knows what would have happened with me? You gave me $10 million at that age? Come on, man. So that's everything happens for a reason, right? So I'm good thing that things like that didn't happen to me. I got to work for every penny I get, and I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that. But, man, that's amazing. That's a hell of a deal right there. And Brock Bowers, I think he's going to be a really good one anyway. He's going to be a guy that I think's definitely going to earn his money with the silver and black and hopefully be around for a very long time, be a big-time weapon for the Raiders. Thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Brandon in Riverside. He's calling to talk about a quarterback, but Not one that's currently on the Raiders roster, but one that he thinks could be available. Here he is, Brandon in Riverside.
Hey, Q, I'm looking forward to this, man. This is the first timer, so you got to hit me with the sound when it drops. This is Brandon from the Riverside, California, longtime Raider fan. Love the pod, period. This is big, man. Jared Goff just signed for $170 million fully guaranteed, and they're sitting on a backup quarterback named Hendon Hooker, who I had a first-round grade on and was one of the best prospects in last year's draft. He would have been a first-round pick had he not blew his knee out, period. Point blank. I mean, what more can I say? You can get this guy, bring him in to compete early in the off season, because I guarantee they're shopping him right now. They're looking to get maybe a 4th, 5th, or 6th round pick, because he's never going to see the field. Jared Goff is never injured, and the Raiders need competition. If you look at this guy when he was in college, he was a Heisman candidate. He was all the things: 6'3", 220 pounds, strong arm, mobile. Yes, he did hurt his knee, but we know now they can fix that. And it's not like Michael Penix, who had multiple knee surgeries and just went number 8 overall. And we were all excited for him. This guy is basically a right-handed Michael Penix with a year already under his belt. So Raiders, please do what we can. We got to get Hendon Hooker. So I'm going to say it just for the pod. Can we bring a hooker to Las Vegas? All right, I'm out.
Brandon, appreciate the call, my man. And look, I appreciate you being a new booty caller as well. I like Hendon Hooker as well. I hated when he tore his ACL. I still remember that game. I was at the house watching it, and I was like, man, I knew immediately when he went down, he tore his ACL, and he was, like you said, on the way to being a potential Heisman Trophy winner. The one thing about Hendon Hooker, I'm not too sure, and the Lions do have him. They gave Goff that contract extension like you mentioned, so what is it that they're going to do with him? Who knows? I just don't know if his game translates to the NFL. And the reason I say that is he comes from that Josh Heupel offense at Tennessee, and I look at that offense and feel like it's it's similar to the Art Briles offense at Baylor. And outside of RG3 his rookie year, no quarterback that came out of that Art Briles system made it in the NFL. Now RG3 did his rookie year, but then injuries derailed him, and his career was never the same. I just don't know. And maybe Hendon Hooker is RG3 like. Maybe that's who he's going to end up being like. But that system that they have where you don't really have to read the defense, you don't have to read the field. It's kind of like, okay, you're going to hit it to your first target, and that's it, right? Sometimes the wide receivers aren't even running if they know that they're not part of the play. Like, I mean, I don't know. It seems very similar to what I saw when Art Briles was running things there at Baylor. Now, it's funny when you mention, get a hooker to Vegas. All I could think of was a time, and I'm going back another Baylor memory, Ahmad Dixon, he played safety at Baylor, and he was asked something about winning the Big 12. They were about to play this big-time game. Matter of fact, I think they were about to play at Floyd Casey Stadium. They weren't even at McLean yet, and they were about to close down the stadium, and they said, "Can you win the Big 12?" And he said, "Could Jesus save a hooker?" It was the funniest thing ever. Funniest now, obviously, being there in Central Texas and around Baylor and saying it with Baylor media, that didn't go over very well. They looked at Ahmad Dixon like he was, the spawn of Satan, but it was pretty funny. It was a great soundbite, got great clicks, but a lot of people weren't too happy when he said that. But that, as soon as you said, "Can you get a hooker to Vegas?" that's all I could think of was Ahmad Dixon saying, "Could Jesus save a hooker?" It was fantastic. Anyway, maybe it's just me. Up next, we got a text from Jay in Syracuse, New York. He says, "Q, the NFL is disrespecting the Raiders with only 2 nationally televised games. They're sleeping on us. These bloodthirsty Pirates don't need motivation, but they'll use this. Hope to see Raider Nation in huge numbers in Baltimore." That's Jay in Syracuse, New York. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was surprised. Last year they had 5, and I guess you could potentially call it 6 primetime games coming off a 6-win season. Last year, they end the season strong with a lot of momentum with Antonio Pierce, and now they only get 2. And really, I mean, a lot of folks are saying it's only 1 because they're not considering the Black Friday game a primetime game. But since it's standalone, I'm considering it a primetime, and I know the league is considering it a primetime. I mean, some games could be flex, so maybe, depending on who's not very good, and maybe if the Raiders are really good, maybe they get flexed into another game, maybe 2. Maybe they end up the 2024 season with 4, but they're going to have to go out there and earn it. That's basically what it is. And, I saw some numbers floating around Twitter on Wednesday as well, saying that, the reason why the Raiders didn't get very many primetime games is because they weren't ranked very high when they had them and people were watching them in 2024 or in 2023, I should say. So not too sure about the, validity of that. Like I said, I saw it floating around Twitter a couple different places, but who knows? They're just going to have to go out there and earn some primetime action. They only got 2, as you mentioned. But, maybe Antonio Pierce will use it as motivation and say they don't respect us. They're going to respect us when it's all said and done. Just got time for a couple more. How about this one from the No, wait, hold on. I got to say this right. Hold on, because I want to say it's David. David. How about the David is calling to talk about Aiden OConnell and Gardner Minshew, the quarterback battle. Here he is, the David, not David, David. Here he is.
Hey, what's up, Q? My name's the David, calling out of the 510. I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener, but I just wanted to call in. Something's been occurring to me. I'm really excited about this battle between Gardner Minshew and Aiden OConnell. And one thing that's just been in the back of my head is how Aiden OConnell, when he was at Purdue, fought for the starting job. I think it was 3 times. So I was hoping maybe you could kind of speak on what those battles looked like. I don't know if you could have somebody on the show that covered Purdue. But I mean, Aiden OConnell seems to be built a little different when fighting for that first string job. So I'm curious what actually happened back at Purdue. So, but anyway, Q, really appreciate you. Listen to your show every day. Let's go Raider Nation. I'm ready for the season. Thanks.
I appreciate the call, and you got to let me know, did you add that twist to your name? Is that really how you say your name? And if it is, I love it. I love it. It's going to take me a little work, obviously, but I like it. The David. There you go. I'm cool with that. But what I can tell you about the battle when it comes to Aiden OConnell, what he had to face at college at Purdue, I mean, he had to walk on. He walked on as a tight end. He had to earn his spot as a backup quarterback. Then he had to fight to get the starting quarterback. Then he lost the starting quarterback job. He had to fight to get it back. And then he went on to, put up monster numbers at Purdue. So I can't tell you, exactly how every competition shook out and, every quarterback that he faced and how he defeated them or this, that, and the other. But what I can tell you is that he's mentally tough. He's been battle tested. He's earned everything he's got. And I never really bet against guys that had to earn everything. Some people are just given things and they don't appreciate it and they don't respect it. And they just think that, oh, that's how it's supposed to be. Oh, that's mine, instead of, oh, no, I got to go out there and get it. That's what he's got in him. That's what his DNA is, go out and get it. So I wouldn't really bet against him. Another reason why I believe he's going to be the starting quarterback the first week of the season when the Raiders are in L.A. taking on the Chargers. It really is nice to say that, right? I can focus in on week 1, which is the L.A. Chargers in L.A. So thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. We'll close out with a text from Art in the 209. He says, amazing job you do on the Daily Q. Great depth at every position with great coaching adds to the team, challenging each other to become the best version of the 2024 Las Vegas Raiders. Question, what is our team's X factor for a successful season? That's Raider Art in the 209. And thanks for the text. And, I had to think about this one for a minute while, I was kind of breaking it down and setting up the show, getting ready to knock it out. And I realized the X factor for the Raiders is Antonio Pierce. He's the X factor. He's the guy that changed the whole culture, changed the attitude of the team in 2023, saved it from being an absolute mess that Josh McDaniels had left behind, brought the identity back to the Raiders, gave the players in that locker room belief that they could be, better than what people were giving them credit for, right? They can do what they want to do their way. They didn't have to fall in line and do it the rest of the league's way. They can find ways to win. And he's a guy that walks around with a chip on his shoulder. And guess what? Those dudes in that locker room, they are a product of their head coach. So they all are walking around with a chip on their shoulder. You think that they're not pissed off that they only got 2 primetime games, that they're being disrespected? I'm saying that in air quotes like that, right? The fact that they have to go to Arrowhead on Black Friday after beating the Chiefs on Christmas at their building. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's plenty of things that they look at. Don't have a home opener until week 3. Right, I'm sure that they're looking at it, and of course they're hearing all about the quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. Quarterback stinks. They're hearing that from everybody. You think that those guys ain't ready to be those bloodthirsty Pirates and get after it? I guarantee they are. And that dude, Antonio Pierce, is going to be the guy to push the button. And he's the one who tells everyone in that locker room how much confidence he has in them. But he's going to push them to be the best that they could be. I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, and someone else can respond to this if they think I'm wrong. I think the X factor for the Raiders in 2024. And hopefully beyond that is their head coach, Antonio Pierce. It's been a long time since we could say the head coach of the Raiders is their X factor. But let me know your thoughts. 707-654-4603. 4693. That's all I got time for on today's show. I got a call from Jordan in Oregon. We'll get to that tomorrow as we close out the week really strong. Plus, we got more texts. We'll have plenty more news and notes. We know there'll be conversations still going on about the schedule and kind of dissecting it and breaking it down. Of course, let me know what you think the window is for the Raiders win-loss total in 2024. I picked anywhere from 9-8 to 10-7. I don't think they'll be an under 500 team this year. I think they'll be better than last year, and they were 8-9 last year. So there's only time to move up, and there's only room to improve and grow, and I think the Raiders will. Again, that's my thoughts on May 16th, 2024. They're always subject to change based off of how the team ebb and flows and things go, injuries, this, that, and the other. But as of right now, I think that they should be considered a team that should win at least 9 games in 2024. 707-654-4693. We'll close out the week real strong tomorrow. Till then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.